So in the August COVID resilience ranking, we see European economies ranked 9 out of the top 10. What's really driving this, though, is actually how the Delta variant has just challenged and defied the success models of so many other places. So, for example, that COVID zero fortress-like containment model that we saw out of New Zealand and Australia, Delta has infiltrated those defenses and put those places in lockdown now. At the same time, on the other end, the vaccination and reopening champions that we saw, like the US and Israel, that were just moving so quickly with inoculation and reopening, they've also now seen new surges of Delta, seeding a concerning a number of breakthrough infections and sending unvaccinated people into critical care wards. So what that's meant really is that Europe has emerged in August as the most resilient group of economies based on this sort of middle ground strategy of widespread vaccination and reopening tied to vaccination status. But what we don't know, of course, is how long this can hold, because we did see that good dynamic happen in some of those other vaccination champions as well previously, and now they've been inundated with Delta. What we're seeing in the August ranking, as has been happening for several months now, is that the bottom of the ranking is very much populated by developing countries because of their lack of access to vaccines. Rich countries have really dominated that supply of vaccines, and now we're seeing places talk about another round of booster shots, which is going to hoover up even more of that limited supply and continue to leave so many of these developing countries unvaccinated and vulnerable to Delta without a shield of inoculation. So at the bottom of this ranking, we're seeing countries in the Southeast Asia region. This region as a whole has emerged really as the new global hotspot for the virus. Southeast Asia as a whole had the highest death toll per capita in the past month. And number 53 is Malaysia, where per capita new infections is one of the highest in the world. And because of the situation with Delta, the central bank in Malaysia has halved their economic forecast for the year, and that's really brought down their ranking as well. So one of the most sobering things that has happened with the rise of Delta is that people realize that this pandemic is not coming to an end, and in fact, we're merely perhaps at the end of the first phase, and Delta has very much brought in a new phase of the challenge. Could be positive examples to look to in the ranking, though, is the example of the Netherlands and the UK, both of which rose in the rankings and are amongst that group of European economies doing well. So what we've seen in those places is, while their Delta waves did surge in quite great proportion, those waves went down without a big rise in fatalities, and they have seen those waves wane without disrupting reopening progress. This is hopefully what we're going to be seeing in places like the US and Israel as well, and this round of booster shots that are coming out will likely help them to continue to keep fatalities down as they reopen, because as we do know, the Western economies very much have said they're not going to turn back the clock. They're not going to go back into lockdown. Reopening and normalization is the way to go.